Hello and welcome to the 3RPG Podcast, a podcast where we talk about RPG games and other stuff. My name's Jay Underwood.
And I'm Chris.
And I'm Sandra Rosner.
On today's episode, we talk about movies and how they might inspire players and GMs when creating their own games for RPGing. And also, we talk about things that should be, maybe, disallowed at the table. Enjoy. Hey guys, so I was thinking about the stuff that I used to do as a kid, and it seems so obvious to me that I always would have grown up to be a love creating games, just like on the fly. Like the games that were out there, Milton Bradley, or whatever they were called, that company, were just always so bad. Like every game was just a roll and move game that were out there that was out there for kids, and I was too much of a dumbass to like buy all the fun like Avalon Hill stuff because I was too young for it. But so I'd always just create my own games out of like a deck of index cards and crayons and colored pencils and stuff like that. And I remember finally getting one of these small little tape recorders that was like I could hold it in my hand, very similar to Home Alone, like what he has. Wasn't as sophisticated as that one. And I would just hold the record button or press the record button rather, and just sort of tell these stories as if I was a character from like Metal Gear Solid or something like that, like talking over a codex or something, like talking to the main character and be like, okay, here's your plan. This is what you got to do. Blah, 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 blah. But then I leave all these gaps and say, okay, but there's, these zombie dinosaurs in the other room. You got to be really careful about this. And I'd set up this whole thing. Like I'm coming from, because I was from the future or something like that. I knew all the events that were leading up to it. And then knowing what I had previously said, I then give this tape deck to like one of my sisters, and then they would hit the play button, and it would be like, okay, I've come from the future. I've sent this tape back in time to tell you that you've got to get out of here real quick because there's zombie dinosaurs that are coming. But then I would play the role of the zombie dinosaur, so I'd put on like the Velociraptor mask or whatever, and I knew like where they would be in the house or in the backyard or in the basement based on the story that I had told previously. So I'd like wait under the bed and they say, you have to go hide in the bedroom or whatever. And then like, they'd lay on the bed, and then I'd sort of like move and like, then like the recording would say, oh, you have to jump. And they would jump and I'd go for their legs or something like that. And so they felt like really empowered. And it was just really
That's pretty amazing, actually.
It was really fun. As I did all these stories, and I think they appreciate it. Maybe they've completely forgot about them all. And
I doubt it.
It was
you don't forget things like that.
Yeah.
I used to draw the worst Mario levels you could imagine. It's like, oh, here comes 80 bullet bills. Like, yeah, who wants to play that?
Like those impossible levels that people like the Super Meat Boy levels that take like 100 lives together.
There's spikes on every edge of every block. You can't jump. Yeah, even Mario Maker levels these days. Well, I don't know. I've seen some pretty crazy ones, but yeah, that's what I used to do. I used to just make tons of Mario levels.
So did you make them like in these long panoramic vision, like you see in Nintendo Power or whatever? They just be like, here's the level.
Oh,
that looks easy.
They'd span multiple sheets of 8.5 by 11. So you'd have to go from one place, and there'd be always like a pipe that would lead you to the next place.
Oh, amazing! Did you still have them?
Somewhere, I do.
Oh,
and they're horrible looking.
No, you gotta upload one.
Okay. Here, I'll make you a deal. If you can find one of those tapes that you had growing up of your recordings, and we can find a way to put them on the internet.
That's not a fair exchange.
Okay, I'll up the ante.
Yeah.
I still have an incredibly early draft of my writing, and I'll throw up page 1.
Oh.
That's probably more damaging than either of you think.
Yeah, I could throw up a page of an early like fantasy novel that I tried writing in high school or something like that. That is just cringe. Cringe.
Like I keep it because it's cringe. It's so cute. It's so cute. It's
yeah. I think I had learned the word like battlements.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I'm gonna use that. Yeah.
It would involve me having to go back to going back to my hometown though, so it's pretty far away right now.
Yeah, that's an adventure in itself.
Yeah. But I
I think
have
it
them.
mi
I know I have them. So
Okay, I'm not forgetting this, Chris. I'm never forgetting this.
I think my opening salvo, my sort of Hemingway moment of the opening sentence of the novel or whatever was something like, Lord Questar on the battlements, like dot dot dot, like oh
Oh,
boy,
I don't know. That's got some strength to
oh
it.
boy, it's got
I mean, you know who it is and where he is. You got some in it. You got an image in the first sentence. I mean, you're getting
yeah.
there.
One of my neighbor's first characters, his character's name was Questar, and we thought it was the coolest thing ever. And then when we went to Busch Gardens in Virginia on a school trip, there was a one of those like interactive rides, like sort of like the haunted mansion where you sit, and it was called Questar, and we thought it was we
no,
thought it was the coolest thing. We're like, wait, what?
Oh,
no.
oh, that's so wholesome. I want to go back there. I want to go back in time. Things were so
Yeah,
much easier then.
yeah. You know, one of a more recent similar situation like this was a friend of mine who I played D&D with for about a year or two before like life got in the way and he got too busy. And he had a character that became this sort of like iconic historical figure in the world. And the name of the character was Edward Newgate. Okay, now now
Edward
no,
Newgate.
wait. Now, so you know where this is going, Chris. But okay, so I was like, oh, this is he was a human hero type, kind of sword and board kind of adventure and stuff like that. And then we played we played like 2 years with this campaign and then one and done. There's a town called Newgate in my world because of this guy. Yeah. And then one day I'm teaching a group of high school students
Oh,
and I'm just asking them like, who are your favorite sort of like characters in cinema and stuff like that. And one of them goes, Edward Newgate, and I was like, what the I was like, how do you know that? How do you know that?
Dissonance.
Like, like then I was like, oh, Max, you son of a, like he just because he just took the name from One Piece, and I
yeah.
never read One Piece. I didn't
Yeah.
know anything about it.
Did Newgate have a big white moon crescent mustache?
No, he didn't. He
Oh, okay.
didn't. But anyway, but I was like, it was better. It was better than his first character's name, which I totally kiboshed, which was Peter I. Staker or whatever, like his
What
Staker.
the? All right, I think we're gonna have a
Oh.
future episode about picking a name.
taking
Oh.
a name. Yeah.
Is that Max? Max?
Yeah. Yes.
Fog Ripper? Fog
Yes.
Ripper?
Of course, it's Max.
Oh my
Of course, it's
god.
Max. Yeah, Max. If you're listening, you will never be forgiven for this.
Ooh. Don't worry, Newgate lives on.
No, spoilers. No, he doesn't.
No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. Yeah.
No, the town.
Oh, okay.
Sort of. Yeah, it's in a bad way right now. Not like much of the
Yeah, oops.
Yeah, oops.
We'll just leave that as an oops.
Did a magma fist punch right through Newgate?
That's right. Something.
Something
went through it.
like
Yeah,
that.
something like that.
Okay, well then, yeah. All you One Piece fans, you can feel legitimized.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, so all these things that we used to do as kids, something that I still do today, other than play video games and still write, is watch movies. Segue!
Nice segue.
Hey!
Hey.
Let's all go to the movies.
By the way, what is it with like the candy that they sell at movie theaters specifically? Do they still do that
Yeah,
in the
sure
US?
do.
Yeah,
Almost the same types.
right? Like Mike and Ike's, Snow Caps,
Yep.
Jujubes, and all that kind of stuff.
Yep, sweets. What are they? Sour Patch Kids.
Sour Patch Kids.
But Sour Patch
and-
Kids you can get at like the 7-Eleven stuff like that anyway, right?
all
Yeah,
those things you can get at
but they're
the
always
7-Eleven.
there. I don't know why I notice it, but yeah.
But nobody goes and buys like Milk Duds just to buy Milk Duds, right? That's like
Yeah, they buy them at the theater. You're right.
buy them at the
It's-
theater.
Yeah. Mine used to be Snow Caps. I don't even know if they make that anymore. But those little like dots of chocolate with the white sprinkles on it, you'd only buy that at the theater. Only.
Yeah.
Maybe that's an American thing because I don't know what that is.
Wait, you
They're
don't
like-
you don't have candy there?
So snow caps. I don't know what a snow cap is.
They're small,
Yeah,
like
once you-
minty flavored chocolates with some like
No,
nice
they were
sugar on
just
top.
chocolate. They were
Were they
just chocolate. Yeah. Now I'm kind of curious. Are they?
I remember them
are
being
they-
a little mint flavored or something like a
Snow
peppermint in
Caps?
there.
I mean, there could have been, but the only ones I ever had were just chocolate. Yeah, it looks like they still make them. I can go on Amazon and get some.
Hmm.
Yeah, well,
Interesting.
I guess global warming's had an effect on the snow cap industry. But bum bum bum. Let's laugh about the future end of civilization as we know it. All right, so
Have fun, children. Learn how to swim.
learn how to swim exactly. The grow some
Ominous laugh.
gills like Kevin Costner in Waterworld, which is not as bad of a movie as people make it out to be.
Is that on your list?
It's got an excellent soundtrack. Okay, yeah. So
On your list.
this is what we're talking about here. To let's ground this discussion. What movies can GM or players themselves find or go to provide inspiration for D&D? It's an obvious question. It's a simple question, but hopefully we've all come up with some really interesting ideas that we may direct people to go and watch these films, not only because they're good movies, but then they can sort of like go in them with also the added kind of primed thought of like, okay, what can I take out of this then, and then sort of port that over into my gaming world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, asterisks, though, we try to find movies that were specifically non-fantasy if possible, right? And that's what made this such a difficult list. Because not only do I watch almost entirely fantasy movies, but or sci-fi movies. I love sci-fi movies, which is just fantasy with technology as magic, right?
Don't say that. My examples are gone.
Oh no!
Not all of them. Not all of
I
them.
mean, I take that back. Fantasy, sci-fi, totally different. But on top of that, I tend to watch more television series than movies. So I actually had a bit of a hard time finding non-fantasy movies to write about here. So
Well, if you did have some TV show content that you wanted to bring up, yeah.
oh,
Okay, so
well, that had to be a whole another one because I could go on for days about the shows that I that inspire me. So
right. Well, yeah, and what falls neatly into fantasy? I think one of my picks actually has very fantastic elements to it, but I mean, yeah, the obvious choices are Lord of the Rings, the Avengers
yep.
films, Hellboy,
Oh,
Everything Everywhere All at Once, Crawl,
never-ending
Dune,
story.
Neverending Story. Yeah,
Yeah.
Conan.
these are such obvious picks
Yeah.
that like people probably already know about and have gone to and have have drawn that well dry. But well, what have you both? What are on your list? Who wants to go first here?
Sandra?
Yeah, I'll dive in. One thing that I was kind of noticing as I was kind of like going through ideas and then nixing them and whatnot is that I needed to almost have a differentiator between a campaign and a one-off. I felt like movies
Ooh.
themselves really lend themselves well to one-offs, where a TV series really lends itself well to campaign. There's certain structures that I was seeing blended really well. So in that vein, I took two sci-fi suggestions to accent this point. And The Expanse would be an amazing example for a campaign.
Mhm.
And The Martian would be an amazing example for a one-off. And it's basically what I was figuring out was that with The Expanse, you have time to really kind of set up, get your players into the world, and then let them explore, let them just go wild over the course of several sessions, hours at a time, and whatnot. But in a one-off, you are contained. You got to get them in there right away. And I felt like the structure of The Martian really kind of got you there. You didn't need a lot of backstory. And if I were to set up The Martian as a one-off, I would do it as take each person at the table and separate them. Do a roll, like for job basically, and you drop one there as the person stuck on Mars or whatever fictitious planet you're going to use. One person is mission control. One person is the pilot of the ship that's coming in to save the day, right? And you create all these different jobs, so everybody's separate. Everybody has a role, has a goal, and has to pull it off, or you all fail this mission, right? So
Oh.
yeah, The Martian was like the ideal for me in a movie to a campaign setting, or into at least a tabletop setting.
The Martian as a campaign might work as a a 2-person session GM and player that you could then extend over several
Oh,
sessions,
certainly,
like as a
certainly.
survival kind of horror thing. But yeah, if you had multiple people on a table, like doing that would be really snappy, really quick
Hmm.
in there. The Expanse also has one of the best sort of cold open sequences of any TV show ever, which is, and I can't remember what season or episode it was, but it's maybe it's the start of season 2, whatnot, where there's like this kind of race car space guy who's like a slinger or
Oh,
whatnot, who's trying to
yeah,
make
that
his
was
way
later
through
in.
oh my goodness,
Yes, it was
it's such a great
glorious.
it's a great opening sequence. But anyway, no spoilers or whatever.
What is still? I haven't seen The Expanse. What is the premise? Or is
Uh,
is that giving too much away? Just go
Jeez.
see it.
It almost
Space,
starts out as a mystery noir in space, and then it turns into
yeah.
like interplanetary politics, war, things like that,
Okay.
with a
Space
menacing alien
opera.
element.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it turns into space opera. It takes a lot of like real world kind of political issues and sort of like uh ports them over into the sci-fi realm. It's got a very strong opening season, as it suggests. That's very noir based. That's excellent, and it all sort of takes place within like our solar system, with then further implications as the season progresses. Stuff like that. It's really worth looking into. It's excellent.
Now, before I feel like I cheated on this, because I did not know this fact when I picked this. When I dug into the Expanse, I'm sitting here thinking about the elements. I'm like, how is this not a TTRPG? Turns out
Probably
it
is.
was.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
was.
Oh,
It
Yeah.
started out as a campaign that turned into the series.
really?
Oh, did it?
So, yes, it did. So, incredible, right?
Con-
Oh,
Conan,
wow.
Conan the Destroyer, the second of the Conan movies, is 100%. Hold on. Do you guys hear that in the background? That
Yes, but
siren?
it's very quaint to hear your sirens versus ours.
Yeah. Conan the
Nostalgia.
Destroyer was totally somebody's campaign session, and it's just obvious when you watch it. But
Yeah,
anyway,
I feel like it is.
those are some great picks. Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if, and I think listeners should understand that when we make these suggestions, like I hope you'd agree that even though you're suggesting like a science fiction story, that one could look at the story sort of broadly and say, like, well, I still want to run a fantasy world. Well, then take the ideas of the experience, try to make that into a
Oh,
fantasy world where
Oh,
where
absolutely.
definitely.
space is the Underdark or wherever, right? And skinning things just but following some of the basic tropes and stuff like that along with it.
Now, I'm glad you just said that because I felt like I was kind of skirting the assignment here by having a series. So I have a third off the wall example here that is so open to reskinning. I want to do at least a one off in like a Rocky Horror Picture Show setting.
Be very
I
fun.
thought that'd be such incredible fun. Now you could take it and it could just be wild, wacky, circus theme, whatever. Like your people show up at the doorstep, they're stranded, and then they have to
Mm.
navigate this crazy environment. But it could also be a murder mystery. It could be a horror. It could be so many things that happen in that house that they wind up in. It just seemed to set like this really fun tone that you could just dive right into and get your players really kind of like freaked out by this kind of like alien environment.
Well, we should
It's
definitely
funny
do a.
because
Sorry, Chris. Go
oh,
ahead.
sorry. No, go ahead.
No, no.
I was gonna say, like, I'm not a huge fan of like funhouse dungeons, but this actually could work as a good funhouse dungeon.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's all about the characters that you throw
Mm.
at your characters, at your players, I think. But
Funhouse dungeon that's based around sort of like the novelty song, like the Monster Mash,
oh my god.
where it's like they're going through like a haunted house and they read
Ooh,
like all the
Halloween
classic,
special.
like Universal. We totally have to do a Halloween episode, by the way. Yes.
I was
Um,
working in the lab late
yeah.
one night.
But that's how you start up the opening monologue as a DM. It's like you
Oh my
bring
god.
totally people in, and
And
they
don't warn
start in
them.
the
Don't warn them. No session zero.
yeah.
You're coming in. It's Halloween themed. You're just gonna love it.
That would be so fun. And the expectation for players is you get to meet, you meet Frankenstein and the Invisible Man and the Wolf Man. And it'd be hilarious. It'd be amazing. Like it would be amazing. Um, uh,
Mm.
Yeah, we got to do this. We got to do this.
Oh
awesome,
man.
awesome. It would be so fun. And like you could even turn it into like it could be a comedic session, or like, I think you could even play that in
Oh,
something with something really dark
Oh
as well.
yeah. Absolutely.
remember the whole Dark Universe attempts with like the the Tom Cruise
Yup.
mummy,
Uh,
uh,
mm, we don't
Ooh.
speak about those anymore.
yeah, Van Helsing, I think was another
No, I
one.
mean we can do our own thing. Bigger, better, more dark. Maybe
Mhm.
not so dark, but so how about you,
Uh,
Chris? What were your ideas for
All right, so
crossovers?
first one, a bit of a cliche, a great movie, of course, almost undisputed, uh, The Godfather.
Ooh.
All right. Now I kind of chose this for a different reason. I chose it because it's a good source of getting very intimidating characters. All right.
Yeah.
Now, like, of course, it has a great story. It's almost an entirely character-driven movie, right? It's full of suspense. It has like a really dark character arc for Michael, but like each of the characters in the show or in the show in the movie have a very powerful presence and different for like it's a perfect example of characters not needing to be physically strong to be incredibly intimidating,
Mm.
right? So when you want, sorry.
how would you recommend listeners sort of like when they watch, if they go to watch, if they haven't watched the Godfather series, envision the family, so like the family are the player characters in this sense?
Well, it could be like camaraderie within the mafia gang is almost like the found it's almost like a found family in some ways, and very much like D&D, right?
Mm.
Parties are like that nakama, that togetherness of found family, right? And each of them kind of have their own roles, just like in a D&D party. And yeah, that's
Ooh,
when I watch
intriguing.
when I watch these movies, I've always wanted to do like a gangster, like you have your rival gang or the five gangs of New York type thing, right?
Mhm.
And you got to take them all down throughout the campaign, that kind of thing. But just like when you watch a lot of the characters, like I get inspired by a lot of the kind of like the Vito Corleone, like oh, make enough your counter fuse, like that kind of
That was
You just want
excellent.
to do the voices.
You just
Oh.
yeah, amazing, amazing.
right. Because like you have like also like the archetypes of like Vito, the boss, right? He's the head honcho. You can't touch him. He's scary. In his presence, you're always on edge in some ways. You have like Tom Hagen, the council, right? The guy
Mhm.
the next to him, always giving him the lowdown and that kind of stuff. You have like Sonny, he's the brute. He beats up everyone, doesn't really think things through, and sometimes you have to clean up his messes. And Clemenza is like the assassin. You don't know what's coming. He's gonna get you when you least suspect it. And you have corrupt policemen and that kind of stuff. You can watch it and you can almost take like a lot of the characters and even the interactions with like the NPCs, right? Like like the what you call it? What's his name? Like Johnny Fontaine, right? The
Mhm.
singer, just like Frank Sinatra,
That's
Frank
right.
Sinatra ripoff, right? So yeah, whenever I
Hearsay,
watch this
hearsay.
kind of movies, that I take a lot of inspiration from watching The Godfather in some ways, and I love the movie, right? Because betrayal and systems. There's a lot of systems involved in terms of like the story and that kind of stuff, and that
Mm.
systems, that's a whole another topic for another day. I could go on for days about systems. So
It,
And
wa-
this
it
sounds
was
like a great pre-made too. So if you were just bringing like people in to your table for like 3-4 hours or something, and you just handed out these character sheets, like they don't even have
yeah,
to do anything. This would be a great pre-made.
yeah.
people are probably already aware of like the Godfather video games and like the Mafia series and all that kind of stuff, which again, like all that, they can take that inspiration from that.
Hmm.
And this could also be like if all of the others were supporting like one player who was like the party leader who gets to like is this they're trying to get him to be the boss and they're all the sort of like the lackeys and the underments like as and you watch this person rise and fall and it does
Oh,
remind me a lot of the campaign that we just playthrough in a way, Sandra.
Yeah,
With
but I was definitely getting some vibes from that. It's just like just different eras and like different societal rules, but it's all the same like psychology there.
yeah. And the way that like the sessions would be able to change then too, like you could play like a several session arc, or I almost see this being like a like an 8 session mini campaign where you play like the story of Godfather 1 and then Godfather 2 and then
Oh,
Godfather
yep,
3,
yep.
and just like watch this sort of like rise, fall, and you know what I mean, blah 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 blah.
Mm.
The interactions therein, a really interesting pick. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought about that.
That's
Okay.
fun.
Jay,
So
show me what you got.
show me what you
Show me what
got.
you've got.
Yeah, good goodness. I hated that's
We're
had such a
such
hold on
nerds.
everybody. um, okay, so I think the first thing that players, GMs, listeners should think about is when they want to go to the well of cinema slash television shows for inspiration. Maybe the best idea to to do that is to just go to a genre that you're totally not used to, or a movie that you're not expecting, a movie that you think you might not like, or whatever. I
Hmm.
think we've talked about it at length before in the past about like about like Bollywood, westerns, musicals, all that kind of stuff. Like go to something that you don't know enough about. The cinema of a foreign country. Find
Mm.
some movies there, and what you're going to get is, going back to our discussion of the hero, you're going to get different sort of cultural ideas of what is good, what is bad, what are role models. All this kind of stuff is going to sort of come to the forefront and totally give you so much inspiration for that. So
I like that.
that's more of a general comment rather than a
Mm.
specific example, but I really think that is so helpful, and just getting out of that comfort zone, because you may be finding that you're in a bit of a rut with the stories that you're sort of telling, and that's the easiest way to find something like that. Go to some traditional 1960s jidaigeki, or period pieces of
Yeah.
Japanese cinema or something like that, and everyone knows Yojimbo and Seven
Yep.
Samurai and all that kind of stuff. But then, like, the sequel Sanjuro is also a great pick, which is just it's an amazing piece of cinema that people can kind of just you're getting a different cultural perspective on heroes and villains, and it will totally be able to like maybe not even plot wise, but like the tonal differences and the way things are looked at might give you some ideas as to how to present a scene in that way. But rather than be so ambiguous, let me give you an actual example. So and this example I wasn't even expecting until just yesterday when because I got back from the cinema. I went to the cinema last night, and we saw a film called Late Night with the Devil.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and so the main character, David D. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, so
Damalchian?
something like that.
Damalchian?
Yeah, he's great. The first I first saw him in The Dark Knight, and he would become Polka Dot Man and all that kind of stuff. And
Yep.
he's got such a screen presence, and I'm glad that he's got like the lead role in the movie.
The Baba Yaga.
And he plays a 1970s sort of like Johnny Carson rival late night talk show host who kind of desperate for kind of ratings. It's implied that he's like made a deal with the devil and he's doing this Halloween episode, and the whole movie is watching this episode that went to air, and it's like this archival footage, like found footage kind of style cinema. And like I thought, how cool would this be as it's like the framing device for like even like a one-off or even a campaign where like it all takes place in the show, the sort of the late night 1970s talk show, and
Mm.
then the stuff that happens beyond the talk show. Then a lot of the characters that are introduced are like, here comes he was the Lich of the Underdark, you know what I mean? And you could have so much fun with that. And then like the stories that they tell, you could then literally like play them a la flashback. So the show becomes like this framing device
Okay.
for the adventures in a weird way. And like, so you kind of start each episode and then maybe even have like full episodes where it's like the main character who's like off having his actual life. And so you've got like kind of a dual storyline happening here. And I think that'd be really kind of a fun, kind of unique way to kind of like pull it in and somehow tie those stories together. Like, are the stories even real? Is the fantasy even real? And playing with that idea of like, is this fantasy happening? Which I think we even alluded to this with the barbarian episode a little bit a while back, where it's like, is the barbarian, the cause of her own frustrations or whatnot, and then so are these sort of delusions of this fantasy world, or are they actually like real stories, and like playing with the framing device of like what is actually happening here? Are these characters living in this world, or are these just the stories that we're telling each other? And that can be really fun.
That's
Ooh,
a really
yeah.
neat
Okay, I'm
format.
seeing that abstraction now. What you're getting at. And just from a player's perspective, it could be a really fun way to try out a character that you've been kicking around in the back of your mind, just for this kind of like setting. Like, does it sing to you in this setting and then use it somewhere else?
Is a
That could be a
one-off
lot of fun.
a one-off guest, yeah. In a similar light, another film, which is again, these are not the greatest pictures, but they're intrigued me, was 3,000 Years of Longing, um,
Hmm.
which is with Tilda Swinton and Idris Elba, where Idris Elba plays this genie, and Tilda Swinton plays this what is she? She's like a doctorate in literature or something like that, and she sort of falls in love with the genie. But he asks her just like, once you have these three wishes, but he's like, oh, I don't know what I should wish for. And the whole movie is sort of like her asking him about like his previous
Oh.
like experiences at a genie who had found him and what their wishes were. But
Oh.
it's also kind of framed as like, like asking somebody about their previous relationships and all this kind of stuff. And it's a similar thing. Like I like the framing device. And I think it could be like same thing with the talk show. This was like you have these two characters who are having this conversation in a room, and then they're reflecting back on the things that they did in the past. But then that's the game. That's the role playing game. But then like each episode is framed with this other story that's happening on top of it. And I'd love to try something like that in the future. I think that'd be really interesting.
Now, in terms of like characters or like players, what roles would they have in that kind of setup?
Well, I think you would play the like I think you have more diversity in the talk show angle because you could have just multiple guests all the time. In this one, it's sort of two people kind of finding out who each other are through these stories. Then all the RPG sessions would take place within the stories, and then maybe you'd have like one character, another character who'd then be playing let's sort of like the meta level, or maybe even two players
Mm,
having that discussion back and forth. But then you can then have a series of one-offs in any number
yeah.
of settings. And this was when I was awoken in Constantinople, and or this is when I was awoken in whatever any time period moving forward to like the present moment, and that would be the end moment of the campaign kind of thing, right?
Feels like intermediate to advanced. Definitely
Yeah.
wouldn't want to drop that on a new player, but it sounds like a really fun kind of on the spot like story. Like I know improv, but like I'm still using that term a bit fluidly. But like you need to craft that story on the fly. Everybody crafts it on the fly, and that could be incredible fun. But yeah, I would definitely save that for your intermediate to advanced players.
Sure.
Not an
Anyone
easy
out there
thing,
listening?
but the results could be amazing.
It'd be
Yeah, it could
fun.
be incredible.
What else you guys got?
Sandra?
Mm. I mean, I am not the biggest TV watcher or cinema watcher.
You're not. We always give you recommendations.
I know,
You
I
finally
try.
got around to one
I
of them.
I mean, I'm finally after all this time getting around to Shogun, which is
Yay!
incredible. I've been
Very good.
binging it
Yay!
this week, even though I'm on deadline. So that tells you how good that is for a setting.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Um, but yeah, honestly, my general advice here would be there's going to be movies and shows that stick with you. Like if you've watched a movie more than once, that's your fertile ground right there. Something in that setting, those characters is singing to you that you want to re-experience it. So then go re-experience it even deeper in your campaign settings. So I'd be looking at anything that's just sticking with you past that initial watch.
Right. I have another one. Now I'm gonna throw out there the Cornetto trilogy. You know, Edgar
Oh
Wright
yes,
and Sean Pegg.
some of the best
Oh,
Simon
movies
Simon Simon
ever
Pegg.
made.
Sorry, Simon Pegg.
Simon Pegg. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
so I'm not familiar with that. So if you can give us a quick,
All
You
right.
you know you must have heard of them.
So, one of my favorite movies of all time. Just you mentioned multiple watches. I don't know how many times I've seen this movie. It is Shaun of the Dead, the first one.
Me too.
oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay, yep,
Chris,
2000,
absolutely,
2004, directed by Edgar Wright.
you're right.
Yeah.
100% support this decision.
All right.
There,
And
there. Sorry to interrupt. There are probably 5 movies at all time that I've like the moment I've watched them. The second I finished watching it, I just started it over again. And Shaun of the Dead was one of them. It was like this is
yeah.
Yes.
No Country for Old Men was another one. But anyway,
Hmm.
Oh, that's another great movie. All right. The reason why I chose Shaun of the Dead, or just the Cornetto trilogy in general, or Edgar Wright's directing style, is foreshadowing. All right.
Mhm.
Mm.
When you watch it, you know, foreshadowing is like setting something up and then having it pay off later, right? And these are the intentional details that later provoke the aha moment to the audience, right? It feels really good as a viewer, like kind of like solving a puzzle, but it also like strengthens the cohesiveness and the verisimilitude of the story and of the world of itself. It's even better if you don't even tell them it's there and then they put it together on their own. That's gold. Uh,
Yes, absolutely.
and when you watch Shaun of the Dead, you and like if you watch the behind the scenes segments, which I always do for movies that I love, they have a kind of like the initial stages of writing it, and you can see how they're constantly crafting like dialogue, story
Mhm.
beats, like imagery and themes with the rest of the movie in mind. And I think that's something that you should do for your campaigns as well. Setting
Hmm.
things up early so that they can get paid off later. It's one of the biggest things I try to push to like new and experienced GMs.
Yeah, it's so tight. It's so smart.
Yep.
The character played by Nick Frost has a line of dialogue in the like first few scenes of the movie where he basically just tells the entire plot of the whole
Yep.
movie, and it's just incredible.
Oh, so good.
Uh,
What's fun is that short stories teach you to do that. That your first line should basically say what is going to happen in that story.
Mm.
That's the best setup. Like there it is. You don't have to guess. You just have to now experience how we're getting there.
it was the
Um,
best of times. It was the worst of times.
yep.
So yeah, like
And I have a
Shaun of the
word
Dead.
for you on that. That it's forecasting. You got to
For
forecast what's going to
Oh, okay.
be coming several steps in advance, so you can be setting that up, getting your reader, your player, everybody, your watcher prepared for that when it happens, so that it's like, yeah, there's the beat.
yeah,
Watch Shaun of the Dead and then watch it again, please.
yeah. Watch it again. Yeah, it's like a Coen Brothers movie. Well, when you watch Coen Brothers, the Coen Brothers movies
Oh,
are better
oh,
arguably the second time you watch them, and
Yeah.
better still the third time, better still the fourth time, and the fifth time. They just get better and better. When you start realizing all the thought and the care that went into each of these scenes and each of these
Hmm.
characters, they and you could get so much wealth for like NPCs by watching Coen Brothers movies, or for foreshadowing by watching the Cornetto trilogy. Yeah, for sure.
oh, Coen Brothers movies. They have like those quirky characters that are just mwah.
Mwah. Yeah, like this character who's got like one scene that lasts like a minute and a half doesn't need to be this interesting, and yet they are. Yeah, it's incredible, and it's one of their trademarks, I think.
Yeah.
My pick that I kind of saved for last has been, well, okay, well, I've actually got two more, so let me go into the my second best, I suppose. Which is the movie from 1977, which Sandra, you've heard me talk about at
Oh yeah, I know you're
nauseum,
going.
is Sorcerer.
Yep,
Uh, I,
Sarsford.
I was going
Sure.
to choose The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I think I've talked about it too much already. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. But Sorcerer by William Friedkin is a incredible film. It's underappreciated, though I think cinephiles all know about it. And it's not only interesting on a formal structural level, but also like just like what happens in the movie is so unique. I mean, it follows a bunch of kind of ne'er-do-well CAD like figures, and the whole sort of like first third to half of the movie is just like these small vignettes of the characters. It's almost like their character backstories. Well, it is their character
Mm.
backstory,
Yeah.
and you realize that they're all, this is a hitman and so forth, and then like the story proper begins in the second half of the movie, and you're like, well, why am I rooting for all these jerks and stuff like that? Well, but because this is they well, it's just like it's a very gritty world. It's a very dark world. It's a simple kind of like A to B story in the second half, but like what happens and how it happens and how it's presented might provide GMs with an interesting way to like sort of how they might want to frame their story sessions, I think. And so that's why I sort of picked that one. It's got one of the most iconic kind of like everyone probably knows the poster if they haven't seen the movie, which is this truck crossing like a wooden bridge, and it looks like the truck itself is about to fall into the water and whatnot. It has nothing to do with magic, despite the name.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, are you cheating here?
Yeah, no. My final pick, and this movie has stayed with me for since I've seen it, and it's still, I think, of like the top three movies that I've ever seen, to be honest. It's incredible, it's simple, it's beautiful, it's profound, and it's an Iranian film from
Mm.
1987 called Where's the Friend's House? And if our listeners have not seen this movie, I find it, watch it. It's amazing. It The story is so simple. It's a story of a kid who realizes that his friend has sort of like forgot their homework. And in the opening scene of the movie, which is very powerful, the teacher essentially tells the kid, like, if you forget your homework, you're obviously not caring about your education enough. So another kid could fit this spot, so you'll be kicked out of school. And,
Oof.
and I mean, these kids are like elementary school age.
Jeez.
Um, and I believe
Oh
it's done
man.
by an Iranian board that's promoting the importance of education for youth and all that kind of stuff. So, um, and the I think it's done with like a real teacher and a class of real children, because the reactions are like real, and it's so strong. But anyway, the story is simply, the MacGuffin, the homework,
Hmm.
and the little kid is trying to find his friend, and he's in this sort of small village. He doesn't know where he lives. Like, it's his whole life is school and his house, and just trying to find where his friend lives and just give him back his homework so that he can bring it to school the next day. That's the story,
Oh.
and it's so tense. And it's like this. It's a child existing in a world of adults who could care less about the plight of this kid. Like this, so this kid's
Hmm.
adventure is so morally good. Like, he's the true hero in this. He just has this thing. This is his worldview, but like all, and he's trying to like kind of ask people like how to help him, and but the parents and other adults in the cities are sort of like, just we're talking politics here. We got more important things to talk about, and that like keeps pushing the kid away to like find these other ways, but then going down these dark stairwells, or these other areas become like the source of tension. um and it
Hmm.
would, it would be really interesting to try to find how that could work uh on a sort of an RPG level. Like, there are RPG systems called like Into the Loop, which is sort of maybe loosely based upon Stranger Things, where all the players play kind of like kids who are kind of investigating like a paranormal activity kind of situation, and doing something like that, where you're the kids in a world of adults, and you know you that's the threat is not like avoiding the police, but it's like it's the trouble becomes sort of like localized, but then enhanced because of that. And I think that would be really interesting as a concept in an RPG game. Like I said, make a simple story, and then make that simple story the most important thing ever.
Mhm.
And that
Oh,
and that could be really where like it's not gonna be like save the world against the the big bad devil monster that's coming down. No, deliver the homework. How do you make that work? You might be surprised.
I think
oh,
you could get some people crying at the end of that one-off or campaign. Geesh.
There is
oh, that
a
sounds awesome.
mm, dare I say action set piece. There's a chase sequence where there is a guy on a donkey who like it's implied that he knows where the friend's house is, quote unquote, and the kid is on foot and he's trying to like to keep up with his donkey through these like city streets, and it's like this very iconic looking hill, and it's the most I've ever been like on the edge of my seat watching like this action set. Be like, I was like, don't let that donkey get away. It's like your
Get
only
that donkey.
lead. I swear, I was like, I was so invested,
You
and
were dreaming of donkeys that night, weren't
the
you?
kid, the kid has just like this purity and these sort of like these beautiful eyes, and the way he kind of like looks up. It's just, it's a profound film. You should all watch it. It's great. Yeah. Anyway, all
I'll
right.
definitely have to check that out.
Um, does anybody have anything else to mention here?
Alien.
Yes,
Just just
yes,
just
yes.
just do Alien. It's
Alien, just
Yeah.
the
watch
alien,
watch the movie, make a campaign based off of it. It's yeah.
every campaign should be based on Alien. It's the
Yeah.
perfect
No,
I
movie.
mean, it's a
enough said.
it's a great like any level, right? So we gave a couple of examples that might have been a little bit more on the advanced side, but yeah, follow the formula of Alien. You got
Yeah.
it.
Unknown, dread, human nature, a truly terrifying monster. Yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
And not everything's explained either.
Yeah.
Hmm.
All right, and that's break.
There are some things at your table that you do not want. And now we're going to make a list of
Ooh.
things that or at our games we try to. These are
Rolling a one.
no. Rolling ones are better than 20s.
I agree. Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
but what are some things that maybe you would like in terms of like character creation or concepts you would veto for creating a character or for having in your campaign? Can you think of anything?
Well, I'm the least experienced here because I've not actively D. I've DM'd little one-offs, little this, little that. So I can just simply say that anything that's kink or fetish, I'm gonna veto right off the bat. I'm just not comfortable with that beyond romance. Romance is fine. Um, and strangely, like I'm okay with when we border into more violent topics. So if everybody on the table has buy-in for something like sexual assault, that could happen if that's where the story goes. But for some reason, I draw a line at the things that are going to make people uncomfortable, probably because they don't share that lifestyle. So
Yeah.
for me, that there's that, and I have a very hard hard and fast rule, and that's don't expect a player at the table to do something that you won't. And a really
Mm.
good example of this is a recent session where it wasn't the girl who faced a potential like sexual assault, violence kind of thing. It was a guy. It was a guy character. And I personally loved that it wasn't up to the female character to have that storyline.
Yep.
It was a male character who suddenly faced it. Now, of course, buy-in had to be there in advance, but that has left me feeling kind of amazing to see how a male player navigated that. It
Uh,
was empowering. Let's put it that way.
I GM that session. Yeah, so I recall this. It was very interesting to watch the player and how they reacted to some of the situations as well. So it was, yeah, very curious indeed.
Very good.
Uh, we'll say to add a question to that. So, what for you as a player then are places that beyond that you don't want to go, or not even on a way that's like uncomfortable in this, but like the things that like areas that like, oh, you don't want to go because you feel it's too tropey or something like that. That's like, I don't want to try that kind of character. I don't want to do that type of thing anymore.
Uh, if you would have asked me this maybe a year or two ago, I would probably say romance goes bad 9 times out of 10. It's just like if you don't have feelings for a player at the table, it's hard to make that happen in the story. And likewise, if you have feelings for a player at the table, it gets weird fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like there's weird alliances that happen that you suddenly the story gets taken out of the campaign and into real life. So that's a very tricky thing to navigate. But I'm going to change that opinion now from experience that having a player and an NPC relationship did work. It worked really well, and it created a lot of interesting tension and a lot of interesting places for the character to go that wouldn't have been presented otherwise. So I revised my no romance to be romance with an NPC and a very very in advance ample buy-in from both whoever's narrating the NPC character, which is usually your DM, and obviously the player. So it can be done masterfully, but there's got to be a lot of pre-planning.
We had about 3 out of 4 of the players in our session who were engaged in romances in game.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that the problem does come from when like a romance out of game then becomes an in-game romance, which becomes very awkward. And then that buy-in can also just come out of trust,
Yes.
because the situation that you're referring to is in the campaign that we play, and we never really sat down explicitly and said like, is romance going to be part of this game? At least I don't recall that, but like we've
No, we had
developed.
some conversation way in. Like the characters were already had some kind of a like hit and miss relationship going on. And then you approached me with like, would this be okay? And
That's right.
yeah, so we did have a later buy-in knowing that the characters had some history. But yeah, I think you really classified it. It's trust. As long as you trust where that story is going and it's not going to go into another, like again, almost into a weird kink fetish, friend zone, any kind of thing like that, then go for it. It's going to be an incredible story, most likely.
Yeah, we're like maybe GMs are using their sort of like position of power
Yes.
Yeah.
to sort of
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
to that's weird. Yeah, that's very uncomfortable. So yeah, that's a definite X card moment right there, isn't
Yep.
it?
Absolutely.
Good
How about
pick.
how about you, Jay? Is there something that you don't allow at I'm even talking about more about like concepts that you would not want in your say campaign.
Yeah.
Like
So yeah,
mm,
I think among the 3 of us, I'm the most sort of laissez-faire, I think.
Mm.
I tend to let anything go. I'm willing to go to some pretty dark places with, so long as one has that out, right? It's like if you're going to have a like a big acid trip or something like that, like you got to be in a safe environment. you know?
Yes.
So so
That's a really good way of putting it.
I'm letting it sort of just like take the ride where it goes as word. And so like story wise, I'm pretty much open for anything, to be honest.
okay, so like what about concepts? Like what about like say would you put specifically like Abraham Lincoln into your campaign?
Sure.
Is that a fetish? Sorry.
Yeah,
Like,
no.
Okay.
he's hanging out with Edward Newgate,
A very specific one. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right. I see what you mean. I, to be honest, I think it could work. Would it be canon? No. Could it be a fun, like silly one-off? Sure. But
Mm.
that goes into sort of like buy-in. Like if all of a sudden you're playing if you're playing a Lord of the Rings style fantasy element, bunch of hobbits bringing the ring to
Yeah.
Mordor, what have you, then all of a sudden they go through a time portal and they're in 1980s Miami. It's like, no, we didn't want to play this. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's a clear,
Yeah.
like that's an equally X card worthy moment, but in a different way. It's not in like I'm insulted like and offended, or it's getting to a trauma area. It's sort of like, no, you've sort of broken the genre. There's a word for this. I can't even think of it right now. The sort of the trust of the story. Like we're within this safe space in a sense, or we're in this.
I mean, it's the
Ah,
style sheet if you're talking about writing. You broke the style sheet of of the
yeah,
world that
yeah,
you've
yeah, yeah.
created, of the
Okay,
IP in
so
a sense.
what I'm kind of getting at is like in your specific campaigns or when you're creating characters, what are some elements that you would not want for your main canon campaign?
Sure, sure.
Like
Um,
Hmm.
UFOs?
um, I do sort of have like pan-dimensional beings in the world. We don't have flying saucers. And I do give my players a fair degree of narrative control, but I'm still sort of the traffic cop.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And it's sort of just it's hard to sort of pin down without going really deeply into the sort of the borders of the world in a sense, right? Which on other borders it would change. So again, yeah, I'm pretty open to a lot of things. And if let's say collectively the players around the table started to think that UFOs would fit in the setting, then I'm totally willing to kind of go there almost. So in a way, like that's part of the kind of like improving yes and element that I'm totally open for.
Hmm.
So um I do think the thing that I'm maybe most like
Against?
against, yeah, is when a serious moment is taking like really silly.
Oh
And
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
that's when I'm going to be the most traffic copy, as it were. It's like, no, this we're having a moment, like knock it off, and like let's be in this because like you're belittling the scene here or something like that.
Mm,
That I think can be a bit like maybe life gets in the way, things are happening in the background, families are running around, kids, dogs, whatever the hell it might be, and that might then happen. Like if you got a table that's quite loose and allows people to like jump off and do this and that whenever they feel like it, a character, or rather a player, might not realize that what's happening now is quite important to another player, and then that's the stuff that I really don't care for. And we're it would be best in the best of all worlds, having everybody on the same page is the best thing, but at the same time, if you're having fun, you're doing it right. So I'm not saying I want to kibosh all jokes or silliness or freedom to like go to the restroom whenever you feel like it, but it's like there's a sort of like a social dynamic at play here that needs to be kind of at least in the
mm.
background kind of respected, and that's quite important, I think. Yeah.
Like just like
I,
in creative endeavors, you get into the zone. And if you're all creating this narrative and you're all in the zone, you don't want to lose. You don't want to get like fall off the tracks there, so to
yeah.
speak. So I think it does. If somebody in one of our listeners is running a newer campaign, but with um, elements that are pushing the limits a little bit, sometimes humor can indicate uncomfort or discomfort with what's going on.
Mm,
So it
yep.
is good to kind of like just have that little fail safe, like is everybody kind of doing this because I should pull back, but more often, or I should not even more, most of the time everyone's just finds a joke funny, right? And then you're right to rein it in and try to get back on track. But
Mhm.
yeah, that little
Mm.
Chris, how about you?
Um, detect magic. I don't like that spell.
Yeah.
I hate
Oh,
to
we are
say magic too.
unified. We are
Yeah, yeah.
unified.
I do not like that spell as a concept that just magic can just easily be detected. You can tell exactly what kind of magic or that kind of thing. So often I'll try to avoid having that in any kind of like spell list that anyone can choose. Um, that's something a campaign related that tongues as well. I'm not a huge fan of tongues. I like the idea that language cannot just easily be translated just because you have a spell for it.
Mhm.
Well, this goes back to one of my sort of like at the end of our top 10 list. It was the sort of like the best and worst thing to D&D
Mm,
is languages, because it could be great, but it could also be really annoying as languages from different
yep.
cultures. I agree. Yeah, detect magic similar to dark vision.
And
these
fly
things
and
and fly. So they can be, these are the parameters in which you must draw something around. I think detect magic can work in like a forensic level, maybe if you're playing that kind of campaign where like you gotta go
yep.
into it real localized. It's like seeing the blood splatters on the wall, or it's like detect magic becomes like black light spell or whatever.
I mean, but that's a
You
discipline at
know?
that point.
Yeah, yeah,
It's still specialized. It's not
yeah.
just any
Maybe
magic anywhere.
switch it from like either a first level or cantrip to like level 7, 7 spells, level 7 spell. So
Now I gotta warn you, Jay, that you're gonna have to put a little pin in this because I'm gonna come back at you about detect magic tomorrow.
Why is that?
Duh.
Oh, oh, oh,
Oh, you've got some ideas about like your new
oh
next year.
yeah.
I
Oh
see.
yeah. Uh-huh. So
Well,
put a
so
little pin in that one.
okay, well, Chris, so I know that also you on the above the table level, you don't like booze.
Hmm.
Alcohol is definitely we also mentioned chips.
Yeah,
Chips.
Not a huge fan of potato
Eat
chips
gummy worms
as a
and
D&D sex.
marshmallows.
yeah,
Marshmallows, excuse me.
Jesus, marshmallows.
Or a charcuterie board. No, I'm just
I,
joking.
I, I would
I've
not.
done
I would.
that.
That okay. Yeah, yeah. That I'm for. But if I show up to a D&D, but everyone's eating marshmallows, I just go home.
Yeah.
Just,
It's almost a fetish. The
that shit
hell
would,
is going on in
yeah,
here?
that would be crazier than a group of people drinking red wine at the table. You know what I mean? By 20 minutes in,
Orders of
everyone's like,
magnitude, yeah.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you cannot have this many people who like marshmallows in one room. You just can't. Not just straight, like maybe s'mores, but
yeah, yeah.
I guess on my list,
Overrated.
another thing that I'm not a huge fan of is like the idea of like multiverse for my campaign.
Not
hmm.
overrated, but you like, yeah, you. It's kind of. I guess we are talking about overrated, but you're saying like you banned. It's like this is you're banned. You're banned.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no multiverse stuff.
There's no other version of your character in another universe that can come into your universe. It just cheapens the stakes of everything,
Hmm.
really, having multiverse in there.
Hmm.
Um, I guess the other concept in my campaign there are no goblins.
Hmm.
Oh, what do you got against goblins, Chris?
Yeah. All our goblin listeners are totally
Oh
offended
my
right now.
god.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Oh no.
Also, to each to their own, right? But I'm also not a huge fan of like the Loxodon characters.
hmm.
I don't know. Goblins, they just seem like you know, like I see their purpose. They're low level. You don't feel so bad about like beating them up until you find out they have children, right? Like but just like the like just like the little creepy children like that.
Hold on, hold on a
So
second.
you have a
Hold
very
on a
specific
second.
version.
Hold on a
Okay.
second. You don't care about beating them up until you find out they have children. So
Yeah.
all the single goblins,
No,
all the
no, that's
single
true,
ladies,
right?
all the
It's
single
it's a,
ladies,
it's a
all the
dilemma,
single
right?
ladies.
It's always the dilemma when you're fighting some
Yeah,
like orcs or whatever, and then you find the orc babies. What do you do with them, right?
yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah. Okay.
I'm
Oh,
being quiet on this one. Oh my
yeah, no,
god.
I don't know, but that's any monster, that's any creature. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Rings of Power has tried to address this issue, but I think that sort of misses the point of Tolkien a little bit, which was like that
Yeah.
it's like an evil versus good story. But anyway,
So yeah,
uh,
not a huge fan about goblins and and loxodons.
by the way, I love it when we disagree. Having a like a spirited and polite disagreement amongst each other would be great for this. By the way, if we have different opinions and feel like no,
Yep.
that's not like bring it on. Like don't be shy about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
senselessly killing something just to kill it and creating a thing to kill for that purpose, completely agree with you. But
Mm.
I kind of like the angle of like, the misunderstood creature in the world that gets the beat down from everyone for I don't know, being unpretty by their standards, and then what do you do with their babies? Like there's a story there.
it's a very fun kind of like postmodern story angle. I think there. Yeah, I've in the world that we play in Sandra, it's mostly humans fighting
Mm.
other humans, and like we haven't encountered a monster in months. In a sense.
Yeah, other than
Uh,
human oons.
other than
Yeah.
other than human ones, yeah. But
Humans
then,
are all the monster you need, really.
yeah,
So
yeah, that does, however, allow. How can I approach it? When it's only human violence, you're espousing a situation where you're gonna be talking about kind of like ethical, moral
yeah,
difficulties
Hmm.
that are challenging, that could possibly be X card worthy stuff. Like, no,
Yes,
I just want to have the hero, and so
absolutely.
in a
yep.
sense, killing something like a goblin that doesn't exist, it's just a fantasy creature, is like an easier thing. I think that is problematic in its own right, because there's what is that saying then, like what is that saying about us playing that world, right?
There are some creatures that we don't have. We have an easier time killing, right? Like for instance, it's like zombies,
Yeah, cows.
robots.
Cows, pigs, chickens.
Oh my God, zombies!
Well,
No, that's what
zombies,
I
robots,
play.
aliens.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
think
Don't kill me.
is that the list?
yeah.
Right.
No, but yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, that, yeah, by having the existence of these mythological creatures, what does that imply within the world universe, right?
Yep.
um And I think despite all of D&D Fifth Edition's attempt to kind of keep up with like sort of like modern day like political leanings, still haven't quite addressed that issue. Where it's just like, oh, by the way, you can be whoever you want, and but then at the same time, screw all those orcs, and like wait, whoa, like what,
Whoa!
I mean, like, hmm.
Wow!
So,
How'd we get here?
abandon my table fifth edition. It's just too conservative for my like.
Jesus.
No, that's ridiculous.
It's a fantasy game. How'd we get
Yeah,
here?
yeah. It is a strange thing. It's a strange thing. The monsters in my world always take on the form of something that's entirely demonic and otherworldly, or is very worldly and is demonic in the sense that it's, all too human, and then relatable. But then you make you make the villain human for that very reason, to say like, okay, well, what do you do now? There's like you have an ethical kind of
Hmm.
moral
Mhm.
implication here to doing something, but that's a different game, right?
Yeah, bonus points if you can start empathizing with the guy or girl.
Oh, the
Yeah.
best villains are the ones that you can empathize with, right?
Oh.
Or like what we've done is I have the players play the group that will then later become the villains, and then good luck with that.
Wow.
You caused this.
You caused it. Other things that are sort of banned at the table. I don't think it's a fantasy world. It's the stuff that gets in the way of the fun of the game, isn't it? Ultimately.
Yeah.
I've heard time travel from a few groups, and not so much that like they don't want to tackle that. It's just trying to track it and trying to make sure that they don't create kind of like the time anomaly by accident on the fly is something that's really hard to bookkeep, and then you have to retcon it and things. So time travel is very situational and iffy. A lot of rules get placed on it if it's in there. Like how
Yeah.
far back can you go? Who can do it?
What are the rules?
Yeah.
Oh, you need
So
a TVA, right? That's
Yeah.
what you're gonna need if you're gonna do that.
yeah.
If you're playing like in the Sliders like universe, which is an old TV show from the 90s or something like that, where it's
Oh,
like,
sliders.
that's multiverse. That could still work. It's got like a time jump element to it. I
Hmm.
think you could really play that. I mean, the universe that we play in's got time travel.
Yep.
Um, uh,
But has
maybe
has one of your
regrettably so.
like Sandra, has one of your characters ever met another version of that character, like from like an evil universe or whatever?
No, not from an evil universe. Not at
Or
all.
not from a
Um,
multiverse. No,
no.
they've met potential time travelers before.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, but
time
you've
travel
never
time
met
travel
like
comes time travel
like
comes with more penalties than gains. It's sort of
Yeah.
it's there with
yep.
a large threat above it, kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. You never really end up happy being the time traveler either, because like even in the best situation, you get to see eventually the results of what you've done, and they're never as good as you were hoping.
Yeah, yeah.
So take that warning if you're ever doing a time traveler character. Things are gonna go very, very differently than you wanted them to.
I got blackout drunk in Kyoto once, and I woke up in my hometown in Fukuoka 3 hours later, having time traveled. Uh, I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know
I think we've
how
all
I got
done that.
home. I don't know how I got home. I obviously got on the Shinkansen. I changed trains. I got off at the right stop. I got into my bed. I opened the door. I went to bed. But in the end, I woke up with the worst hangover and had to go to work. And it was So regrets were made.
So
Time
don't
travel has
time
come.
travel when you got to go to
Kyoto?
work the next day.
That's don't try for me. Wait, what? All right, guys. I guess I'll see you all next week. I feel like it's a pretty good end there.
Yeah. I think we imparted a lot of good wisdoms about drinking and kinks and
No,
I
no
I don't know.
gypsies.
Yeah, who would have thought that this segment would talk about kinks and drinking?
I mean,
Kinks and drinks.
okay, honestly, if there's going to be a crossover section of kings drinking and TTRPG,
Goblin genocide. Yeah.
go to a fantasy convention. You're gonna see the crossover.
Yeah, exactly.
No
All right,
judgment,
guys.
but it's
Yes.
there.
No
See you next
judgment.
time.
Bye.
Bye.